What about as consumers' literacy about where our energy comes from and its importance to the economy? Is it at a good level, or how would you assess that? And what should it be?
Well, we're just about to issue a report out of the University of Calgary on the 31st of the month looking at that very question, energy literacy, and how it varies so much across Canada. And people think that they get energy from less than polluting sources in many cases. So everyone wants to ascribe their electricity to some combination of hydro and renewables and fossil fuel, when in fact it's not true. A lot of the provinces depend more heavily on fossil fuels. And Canadians tend to be very aware of the environmental connection between developing fuels, using energy, especially when they go long distances. They use a lot more fuel, and they are very aware of that and aware of that cost. So when we asked the literacy question of the average consumer, what we got back was a willingness to pay to try and overcome that. In other words, something to put back into the system to try and manage environmental quality while still protecting the major industries that are here. One of the things that they cited very heavily, at least more than half of Canadians felt that they had a desire to be free of the tether that binds them to the United States, like be more energy independent. And yet, when it came to a question of, look, the United States sends a lot of their dollars up here, they support us very, very heavily, then the Canadians are saying, well, okay, we need to protect that economic relationship. So it's a conundrum to try and appreciate being tethered to one source, but still wanting to break out, explore new markets, get out to Asia, get out to the developing world down in Brazil or in South America, and try and make some inroads into those areas. So Canadians are very well aware of what some of the opportunities are. They're just not clear that they know how to get there.
Mm-hmm. In terms of an interesting point you made was, because there's been a lot of emphasis both recently in the news here about liquid natural gas to Asia, and also getting the pipelines to the BC coast for oil exports, increased oil exports to Asia, and because one of the reasons being the U.S. Consumption has been down, and also the dependency on one market. Where your somewhat counterpoint, which made sense, was the idea that it may be going down, but it's still a heck of a lot of volume.
Oh, it's a huge volume. And
maybe speak a bit, about the continued importance of the American market, even though Asia is still important as well.
Right, and for Canadian oil to compete, it's got to compete against other oils of the similar quality, fairly heavy, and a fair amount of sulfur in it. So it's got to get into a pipeline that gets it to the facilities that can process it. Most of those, at least in the Western world, are in what's known as Pad 3, or the upper part of the Texas-Oklahoma valley up there, or down there. And so we need to be able to compete at that level by getting it down there where it can be processed, but we take up a hit as far as the discount for price, because there's a lot of newer, sweeter, that is oil that has a little bit less sulfur in it and has a higher specific gravity, so it flows a little easier. There's a lot of that out there, and we get pushed back or taken last. But when we do make it to that market, we don't tend to go offshore. We don't tend to ship out to world markets out of Port Hardy in Texas or Galveston. In fact, what we do is we push heavier oils from Venezuela and Mexico off, so they have to go find a new market. Oil's a fungible commodity. Oil of similar quality trades at a world price, no matter where it is, subject to a discount for distance it's traveled or its quality. And we're in the big leagues in trying to sell oil into that market. And in certain cases, like the last 2 years, we've been taking a pretty big discount. If you contrast that with liquefied natural gas that can get into an Asian market, that differential's about 5 times the other direction. There's a huge premium right now if we can get gas into that market. Now, as soon as we start getting gas into that market, everyone else is going to want to get into it, so we can expect that marginal compress. But right now, it looks as though that's a pretty viable and robust market for us to get out to. So the Mackenzie Pipeline teaches us one thing, and that is, if you're going to grant an approval or a denial, you're better off if you do it more rapidly and not drag things out, because the markets shift and they'll walk away from you. And right now, that oil market may be walking away, and part of our job is to look out and say, well, if that isn't as strong as it could be, or if the real market for the heavy oil products is down in the Midwest in the U.S., maybe we should start to tackle other markets that are in a growth mode.